Good afternoon and welcome. Today is March 23rd, Tuesday, March 23rd. It is 5:04 p.m. And I am calling this meeting to order. Welcome to our regularly scheduled board meeting. It's good to have everyone here. For all those watching on YouTube, welcome and thanks for joining us. Good to see all of our staff that are in the room with us as well, and on Zoom, and for those board members joining us via Zoom as well. So good to see everybody. Happy Tuesday. And welcome back from spring break. So before we do the roll call, I'm going to read our board norms and protocols as we do at every meeting. So as a board, we agree to respect the differences of opinions in making decisions for the district, to follow best practices in managing the superintendent and the management of the board itself, to stay on task when conducting business for the district, including while at board meetings, to never surprise the superintendent or each other when conducting official business of the district, to read these norms at the beginning of each board meeting and at board workshops as a reminder of how to conduct our meetings, and to continually self-check to determine if we are following our norms when conducting district business. So with that, 1 minute. Ms. Smith has given me a hold on a second. Again, welcome to everybody. Hope everyone had a nice spring break and is rested and ready to continue on with our school year. And we apologize for any technical issues as we're getting readjusted to do this both in person and via hybrid remote. We're always getting some of these tech issues out of the way, so give us 1 second, please. Sorry, folks, we're just having a quick technical issue, but we'll get it taken care of and we'll continue on with our meeting. So sorry about the delay, and thank you for your patience. For anyone watching via YouTube, thank you for your patience. Welcome, glad to have you here.
Jake, is he talking? Mr. Lopez, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we could hear you.
Just 1 moment. Can you hear me now?
Yes. All
Okay,
right.
thank you.
If you're good, yeah, we'll do a roll call. Thank you, Leslie.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, present.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew present.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, present.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez present.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page present.
Dr. Wynn,
Dr. Wynn present.
and Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. So with that, I would take motion for today, to approve today's regular agenda.
Mr. Lopez, I have two motions, please.
Dr. Nguyen,
I'd like to make a motion to add one item entitled vacation policy.
okay.
That would be the first read.
You said a first read?
Right, since our protocol is to talk about one thing, one meeting, we've already had a conversation in the Finance Committee. So 3 of us have been made aware of the topic. And so I think we need to, well, actually you need a second before I start discussing.
Okay, so there's a motion to add an agenda item on vacation policy. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Any questions or further discussion? Was there something else you wanted to add to that, Dr. Nguyen? Sorry.
I think it's important that the board had time to read through it. I just looked at my email. Was any correspondence sent to other board members before bringing it today? So they would be versed in it prior to?
So it looks like Dr. Nguyen maybe is frozen. Can you hear us, Dr. Nguyen?
Brandy, did you get a copy of it, or did any other board members
No.
look over anything
So-
prior to today's meeting?
Yeah, I did receive an email about two and a half hours ago regarding this motion, but I am hesitant to add it since we haven't had, since it wasn't previously on the agenda and staff weren't prepared to discuss it during today's meeting. It was on a short notice, so.
Right, I think we should wait and give other board members time to review it so it's not a surprise for our first read.
So I have not had a chance to read that email. I think I know where Dr. Nguyen is going though. And so Dr. Miguel, just so we're on the same page, not necessarily with changing the policy, but the conversation we have in the Finance Committee, do you all need anything from us? I would assume you would have added it to the agenda if you did.
Are you froze?
Right, so we had a conversation about this in Finance Committee to get the feedback from the board. We were not aware that the board would bring this as a motion. We would, based on your feedback, it gave us a path of action for a procedure.
Okay.
We were not aware that it would become a motion at the agenda until today.
Okay, I just needed clarity as far as when we're getting ready to vote, as far as what you need. I know it came
Right,
up with
and
finance,
you
but I
did
wanted-
provide the feedback, so we were
Okay.
going to proceed with that and bring
Okay.
it back to the board.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Lopez, the internet devil just got me, so coming in on the end of the conversation, my motion to bring it up was to have a preliminary discussion because understandably, and I made this point in my information, that we're not making policy. We don't know what the policy is. The board needs to have a discussion. I think with respect to the people, they need to know how the next 3 months are going to proceed. Supervisors need to know that maybe they need to start working on a schedule. I think it's just being proactive and having a conversation. Perhaps, and I say I'll apologize I'll apologize to Mr. Lopez and Ms. Humphreys, Ms. Page, but Dr. Yeager and Ms. Clark and I were made aware of the issue in the Finance Committee. I didn't see a report, the Finance Committee, on the agenda, and I just think with respect to our staff, we need to start having conversation. That was the purpose of my motion.
So for clarity, Dr. Nguyen, just for my clarity, is your motion to look at what the policy is for vacation? Or I guess I just need a little more clarity on what the actual motion is to discuss.
I will read what I wrote to you, Dr. Miguel and Ms. Page. I said, because we will vote on the second read April meeting, I believe that we need to present the issue for discussion tonight. We need to know the range of accumulated vacation days that exist, days over the carryover limit. We don't know what the carryover limit is. During our discussion, the Board of Education needs to suggest that the supervisors start now in creating a schedule that will allow their staff to take vacation days while still having staff to cover the jobs. They may even need to hire subs. Then we will decide on the policy at the April meeting so that there are no surprises. And then I just added that I wasn't in favor of paying out the $1 million. That is exactly word for word for what I wrote. I'm not asking anything but be polite and thoughtful to our staff so that we start having that discussion now.
And Mr. Lopez, my concern is that it seems like there was not enough time or awareness for this preparedness. So I would just, recommend that we would have it on the next meeting rather than today.
Then I just call for a roll call vote, Mr. Lopez, for the, add the addition.
Thank you for the discussion. Are there any other questions or discussion points before we vote? Looking around the room. Okay. If not, Ms. Smith, would you please do a roll call vote?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, no.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, no.
I'm sorry,
No.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, no.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, no.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager,
Dr. Yeager, no.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Mr. Lopez, I have a second motion.
Please, Dr. Nguyen.
Thank you. I move that the Board of Education establish days in April for budget and policy workshops. Many of the items that we were told last year that we would discuss as a board, we have not taken the time. We have been busy. And while the staff is working on the details, the Board of Education needs to establish days to start discussing the following. And there's a list of things from equity hiring policy to encumbered funds policy. And after a second, I can go through the entire list.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. There is a motion on the floor, the motion to add dates to discuss items that Dr. Nguyen had pointed out and a few others. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. Further discussion or questions?
Again, I was not aware that this was going to be added to the agenda. I think we need more time to look at it and review. In the policy committee, in the finance committee, we did talk about an outline for that and was beginning to build it. But this is a surprise to me as I didn't know. And so therefore, I think it should be encompassed maybe on the next meeting. So we'll have time to clearly see and look at and check what exactly is being done.
Thank you.
And so if that information could be forwarded it so that we can have time to review, I think that's important.
And Dr. Nguyen did email me and Ms. Page about that earlier today, so.
Are you talking to me?
Sponsored this time by Staples Store. Staples has everything you need.
Sorry, I was just saying, Dr. Nguyen, I was just making the statement that you did email that to me and Ms. Page, so we weren't caught off.
Oh, yeah,
guard with
I
that
follow
motion.
all protocols, so.
Yeah, no, I was just making that
Make
comment.
that clear.
Mhm.
And these issues were told to us last year that we would start in January. So the surprise factor is not there. The equity hiring policy, previously rejected by the board, we're told that we would revisit. The fleet of automobiles, the Board of Education passed a motion to review. The benefit packages administration cost savings were rejected by the board, told that the board would revisit. A new for us, well, for me, not 15-hour, of those who are not currently making 15 hours. The purchasing manual and the legislative post-audit items were suggested to be on the finance committee, were not put on the finance committee. So the motion is for items that we're told we were to have reviewed from last year to January. This is March. The motion is to establish days in April. The board will establish days in April. It did not say that we would decide tonight. It said that the board will make a decision tonight that we would establish days in April to review at least these items. And I'll call for a roll call vote.
Thank you for the clarity. Any other questions? Okay, if not, Ms. Smith, would you please do a roll call vote?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
I couldn't hear you, Ms. Drew.
She said yes. Sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Humphries? Janie Humphries?
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez?
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page?
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen?
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager?
No.
Thank you. Motion passes. So we will work on, Ms. Page and I, will you work with me and Dr. Miguel to get some of those dates and those items that were listed by Dr. Nguyen for dates in April? Ms. Page, you and I can work on those.
But we also get the full list as well, because there were things like 15 days that it was not clear what it references.
Yes.
Reference $15 an hour to those who currently are not making that. That was $15. I'm sorry.
Right, and I think we had a discussion about why $15 wasn't a standard. We did an analysis on that, which is, again, without clarification of
That was last year, Dr. Yeager.
So
We said we would revisit it.
I will send out the list to the full board so everyone is aware. And then
if
we
we
can
could have
have,
explanation behind them rather than just a list to get additional clarification, not just a blanket list. Because again, I think I need additional clarification as to what we will be discussing and what it will entail.
sure, I will make sure to get that list and some clarity for the full board. And make sure we have good discussion and the information necessary during those meetings. So we are thoughtful in our approach. So thank you. I'll make sure I get that to everyone. Thank you, Dr. Yeager. Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. All right. I would now take a motion to approve tonight's agenda,
So moved.
As amended.
amended agenda. Thank you.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark?
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew?
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries?
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez?
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page?
Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen?
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
And Dr. Yeager?
Yes.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Thank you, everyone. All right, I will hand the meeting off to Dr. Miguel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. And the first item that we start with celebrations as usual. It's Employee of the Month, so I would like to invite Ms. Mitchell to share with us the information on the Employee of the Month this month.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone.
We can't hear on our end.
Am I back?
Yes.
There you
Okay,
go.
did you hear anything that I said?
No, nothing.
Okay, let me share my screen again. Sorry about that. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon. It's time again to announce the Employee of the Month for March, and this month it is Nancy Gatewood. And Nancy is a member of our Nutritional Services team. She works in the central kitchen and been with the district for 16 years. And Nancy was nominated by her manager, Jessica Lawrence. She's been working throughout the pandemic to make sure that our kids do not go hungry. She has done a lot for the community in making sure that our children are fed. and continues to be a mentor to our new teammates and a confidant to coworkers who share that they are having also food insecurity issues. So she is rallying her team during these very difficult times. And both her supervisor, myself, and I know Dr. Miguel want to thank her for all of her hard work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mitchell, and thank you so much, Ms. Gatewood, for your dedication. We know our students appreciate your work, and we do too. Thank you so much. You make us very proud. And next is Student of the Month, and Mr. Linkus, who's here in person, will share with us our young students as Students of the Month. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board, Board President Lopez, Madam Vice President, fellow members of the Board, Dr. Miguel. It's with great pleasure I have the opportunity to introduce our Students of the Month. I usually get the most fun the second meeting of the month because I get to come up here and brag about the students and the great things they're doing. So it's always a pleasure to do so. So we want to start with our ECE, and hopefully everyone can see this young gentleman up on the screen. And our winner there is from the Early Childhood Center. It's Damian Gutierrez. And he has mastered all his pre-kindergarten skill sets. He is working currently to master his kindergarten skill sets, so he's actually getting on level and ahead. And he is on Zoom not only once a day, but often twice a day. So he can't get enough learning, and he is doing great things. And just want a special shout out to Damien's family, and congratulations on this honor.
Very nice.
See if we can get the mouse to work.
Oh, there.
We can always go Plan B. So our elementary winner is Yaslin Acosta Rivera. She's a 5th grader at Mark Twain Elementary. And it was almost a book that was written about her and the things she was doing. So I'm very happy to point out a few things. But previous to COVID, she was a member of Girls on the Run. She was always willing to try something new and pushing her teammates, her peers, and other young ladies to do their best. She created a slideshow through this program about kindness. This slideshow was shared with the entire school, so she's a trendsetter and creating a positive school culture. She always has her camera on during Zooms. She's answering questions, and recently promoted thanking a teacher. And through doing this, it encouraged other students to do so. And then other teachers in the building got thanked by students who said, hey, we're not just going to thank this teacher.
Nice.
We want to make sure our teacher gets a thank you as well. So Yaslin, thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for all your great work. And thank you to the Acosta Rivera family. Our middle school winner is an 8th grader from one of our brand new buildings, Carl B. Bruce. It is Surmi Vervena Juarez. And she completes all of her schoolwork. She masters the materials that she's working on. She came in with limited English skills, but has worked very hard to improve that, and she continues to do that work. She's a hardworking student who gives maximum effort on everything she does. Her work and determination have continued to show her nominating teacher the impact that a teacher can have on students and the impact that our teachers make every day. So, Surmi, muchas gracias por todo. Felicidades. Felicidades a su familia también. And thank you to all the teachers. And it's great that the Surmis of the world are showing our teachers the impact that they're making every day in all of our campuses. Our high school winner is Cameron DeBow. In Cameron, I apologize if I got that wrong, but there was a great list of what this young man is doing. He's displayed leadership in and out of the classroom, selected and participated in the BizFest competition, which we know is competitive and very hard to be a part of. He's an honor roll student, which we always like to hear, a member of the basketball team, and in being an honor roll student, a participant in BizFest, a leader in and out of the classroom, a member of the basketball team, also works part-time at the Great Wolf Lodge as he's doing all of this. So Cameron, congratulations to you and your family. Thank you for all the great stuff you're doing for Schlegel and the community. And one thing I forgot to mention that's not written down, but it comes back to me, he also volunteers with the Harvesters.
Wow.
So thank you for everything you're doing to make KCK a great place and keep our community going the right direction. And board, thank you for this opportunity to present our students.
Thank you so much, Mr. Linkus. This is definitely the best part of our board meetings, when we celebrate our students And so we want to thank the schools that submit their names, Mr. Linkus for bringing the good news, and all the families for sharing their kids with us. We could not be happier and prouder. Gracias a todas las familias por dejarnos trabajar con sus niños. Es la mejor parte de nuestro trabajo. Nos hacen realmente muy orgullosos. Gracias.
Thank you, Dr. Miguel. Thank you. I echo everything you and Mr. Linkus shared, so thank you so much. Next on our agenda is our community comment section. Today we have no community comments submitted. I will just remind our community members that you are always welcome to submit comment, and you can do so by submitting via email or calling our board clerk, Ms. Smith, and leaving a message if she's not available. We would appreciate if you could send your comments prior to the Monday by noon, the Monday prior to the board meeting, to make sure that we have all of your information submitted. So thank you, but no comments submitted for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. As part of my communications, we're full of good news today. So I am very happy to introduce somebody to you that the board approved for hire last board meeting. She's not new to the district, but she's new to the position. So I would like to introduce Ms. Lindsay Schneider, Director of Professional Workforce Development, so that you can have a visual of who you hired. Lindsay started her teaching career with us in 1996 at Central Middle School. While at Central, she taught reading, language arts, and social studies. And during this time, she also earned her master's degree in curriculum and instruction with an emphasis in ESL from Kansas State University. Her bachelor's degree from Baker University, and she has K-12 ESL certifications and a KSDE certified instructional coach. So all of those credentials. Very proud of you, Lindsay. And over the course of her 24-year career in Kansas City, Kansas public schools, she has served in a variety of roles, from literacy specialist, ESL instructional coach, high school instructional coach, you name it, and she's done it. So Lindsay, we're so proud to welcome you to this new role. You're no stranger, but we're very happy that you're taking a new challenge. We know you love to grow and learn, so we need you, and we're very happy to have you here. Board, this is Lindsay Schneider.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I really appreciate it. Thank you, board members. I'm very excited for this new challenge and opportunity. I really want to thank Dr. Miguel and Matt Anderson, as well as the rest of the district leadership team, for their vote of confidence in my abilities. And, through the course of my 24 years, I've had amazing mentors and opportunity for wonderful professional development. And so that's something that I hope to continue in my new position. Mm-hmm. And anyway, very excited. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We're excited to have you, Lindsay.
Thank you. Welcome.
As you know, it's Employee Appreciation Week, so it's so nice. This week we had the pleasure of seeing staff back in the building. We're back to in-person work, so it was so exciting to just walk around the building and see faces of some people that we had not seen for a whole year. So it was a very exciting day yesterday. Staff was fully in person in schools also, so there is a lot of activity in the building. And of course, this is our self-proclaimed KCKPS Employee Appreciation Week. So a huge shout out to the people who made that week happen and who made it possible for us to say thank you to the staff: Noemi Sanchez, Ana Perez Seaver, Stephanie Ferris, Leandra Hood, Alexis Salinas, and Lauren Clay. Thank you all. It has been an incredible effort to say thank you to our employees. And of course, we have KCKPS Show and Tell. Let me show you a picture real quickly. Let me see if I can share my screen. This is our show and tell. Every board meeting, we like to show off the great things going on in our district, so we also do a great job of sharing that information on our social handles. And now we're taking it a step further, so we found a place on our district website. So when you have time, go to KCKPS and click on KCKPS Show and Tell to learn more about our wonderful students and staff. And if you have information or some great things going on, this is the place to go and let us know about it. So one more feature of our district website. Thank you, staff, for putting that together. A quick update, we announced at the last board meeting that March 25th would be the next Enough is Enough Community Forum, but we had to postpone it because some of our parents and partners that were hoping to take part couldn't make it. So we moved it to April 15th, and you can learn more by visiting enough.kckps.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Miguel, and thank you all staff for the great work that you continue to do. Just a few announcements or communications on my behalf. Again, I just want to say I'm hopeful that everyone had a nice and restful spring break, and that we've come back ready to finish off the school year strong. So thank you. Hopefully you had some time off, and to our students and families, hopefully you had some restful time off as well. I do also want to acknowledge, as Dr. Miguel did at the beginning of the meeting, and welcome all of our staff that are back in our buildings. I think it's an exciting next step, an important next step for our district as we continue to work towards bringing our students back in person. As always, we will continue to prioritize our staff and students' safety and health while also providing that quality education that our students all deserve. So thank you to our staff, and we're excited for this next step. A reminder to our board, you should have received some communications from Ms. Crystal Watson and the Kansas City, Kansas Foundation for Excellence regarding the I Believe campaign and the 2021 annual golf tournament, which all benefits our students and families. So please make sure that you review that information. You should have that in your email as well. It's exciting times to see great work happening from the foundation side that impact and benefit our students. So thank you, Ms. Watson and Foundation, for the work you do. It was an exciting event that we had a week or two ago at the Carl Lee Bruce with the virtual reality kickoff. That was great, so thank you for that work that you all are doing. I do want to just quickly say congratulations to all of our student athletes who participated in sports over the last couple of months, and as that basketball and football and everything else is concluded, such an amazing group of young student athletes, and the perseverance and persistence that you all have shown during this challenging year. Shout out to Tammy Romstad and all of our athletic trainers and coaches, but especially to all of our student athletes for the great work that you do to make sure that our student athletes could have some type of a season this year. So we appreciate you and all the work that you're doing. And congratulations, regardless of how the season ended for any of our teams or individuals. You all are rock stars in my book for this. So congratulations to you all and to your families. Lastly, I do just want to remind our board and our district and community that March 26th, which is this Friday, is designated as International Social Emotional Learning Day. Research shows that social emotional learning changes the lives and provides many benefits to our students, including improved emotional skills, well-being, and behavior to improve academic outcomes. Our SEL, Social Emotional Learning Coordinator, Tracy Chauvin, is an advocate for the SEL work in the Department of Student Services. Tracy has been promoting SEL Day on our social media and artifacts that celebrates the work from our schools. This is an important part to reinforce the value of our students' feelings valued and safe as we prepare for our students to return to school. This work is so important as we continue with our initiatives such as our trauma-sensitive schools and our work with our Enough is Enough initiative. So I just want to say thank you to all of our staff and families that are involved in this work, and again to recognize March 26th as Social Emotional Learning Day and the work that we do to support our families, students, and staff. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the next item is, as staff started coming back to work in person, and as we started gradually adding students and having more in-house remote learning and remote meetings, we started to realize we were having a technical problem. And as we looked more into what was happening while people started coming back, and foreseeing what would happen in a couple of weeks when teachers will now all be in the buildings and we will continue to have some remote students, we identified an issue that, because we had never done this before, we did not realize we were gonna have, which was the need to increase bandwidth to allow for the increased usage volume. So once the issue was identified, we quickly acted to find a solution. So I would like to present to the Kansas City Board of Education a motion to approve increasing the bandwidth for internet connectivity for school buildings and central office to support the increased usage volume as submitted by Mr. Covington.
Good evening, Chair, Madam Vice Chair, board members. As Dr. Miguel said, I bring to you an item to where we need to increase our bandwidth. Two things before I really get started. I submitted to Leslie an update revised cost that from what we had last Wednesday. And I just want to thank Mr. Rashid Huda for his work with working with Spectrum and getting exactly what we needed and getting the costs drastically reduced.
Excellent work, Mr. Hoda. We appreciate it.
So what the solution to the problem is that we need to increase our bandwidth at 13 of our elementary schools and 2 middle schools to take them from 1 gig to 5 gig. Then we also need to increase the bandwidth at our central office and a Carl Bruce to 10 gigs because that is the central hub and Carl Bruce is our backup for the central hub. And to make these updates will cost us $9,131 a month for 12 months at a cost of $109,572 versus the $500,000 that was originally estimated.
Very nice.
So Mr. Huda and his team went to work, meeting with the Spectrum people to determine exactly what we needed, and we got that cost drastically reduced. And now that $109,000 is just for the first year. The second year, we will apply for our E-rate reimbursement, and they cover 90% of this cost. And so the second year going forward, it will only be $10,000 increase to what we currently pay. And based on these updates, we should be able to cover the increased usage and for future usage that we may have of the district. So I ask that the board approve the increase of the bandwidth.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve increasing the bandwidth for internet connectivity for school buildings and central office to support increased usage volume.
Thank you, Ms. Drew. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
This is Yolanda, second.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
and Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Covington, Mr. Hoda, for the work and team for putting that together.
Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Lopez, before Mr. Covington and Mr. Hoda leave, we had a question for them during the agenda planning period about the other, I'll call it connectivity deserts.
Yes, Dr. Nguyen, Mr. Covington's making his way up.
The other schools are on Google Fiber, and they won't need an upgrade, and we can no longer increase our use of Google Fiber because they're no longer increasing any usage here in the county.
So with that in mind, those that have Google Fiber, there will never be a problem of bandwidth?
No, according to how that fiber works, we would not have a problem in their usage.
Okay. There were other questions we had for you. Do you want to address them?
Yes, ma'am. I don't remember the questions.
Just that there, connectivity. There was when I threw the question out, does it solve all connectivity issues? There was still discussion that there could be connectivity gaps. Does this solve the problem? Or are there still some concerns, some issues, some students, remote students who will have a connectivity issue?
Okay, I'm gonna have Matt Anderson to come up, because what I'm thinking is that this was solved as to the kids that were in these deserts. They should have assigned to come back in person.
They should have, which is, good evening, board. I apologize. Let me take my headphones out, it's echoing. What we're going to do is talk about what we're doing with our students in the next section, or the re-entry update. So that way, Dr. Kimberly Shaw will talk about how we're connecting with our families.
Online, the connectivity went out. Randy, are you able to hear?
We can hear you.
Yes. Can you
We
hear us,
can't
Dr.
hear
Yeager?
anything on Zoom.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear now?
You may have to send them a text.
Can you hear us now, Dr. Yeager?
Yes, we can. We did not hear anything Matt said.
Okay.
It was disconnected.
Okay, he'll get.
So I'll
he'll
try
start
again. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure. What we'll be doing in our re-entry presentation is giving you an update on how we're connecting with our families to ensure those that did sign up for a remote have connectivity, and those that have not signed up, we're going to try to encourage them that if they do not have reliable internet, that it would behoove them to join us in in-person learning, so we don't have to worry about those issues. So they will give you an update on how they're communicating with the families to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wynn.
Thank you, Matt. The next item is, we go to the section board updates, and it's a legislative update. And we would like to ask that you accept a legislative update as an informational item as submitted by Mr. Brady. Mr. Brady, are you on? I saw
Yes,
you earlier.
I am.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Yeah.
you well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Miguel. Just a couple of key issues currently going on at the Capitol. House Bill 2119, which I think we've talked about last month, is on the floor and ready for debate. It's been there for a couple of weeks, and we continue to lobby hard against it. I call it's basically the KSDE budget with a bunch of social policy changes for education, from vouchers to tax credits to restrictions on remote learning, and reduction in the high-density weighting proviso from 2 years to 1. So it's got a lot of negative things in it that the education community is not very excited about. We're hearing might be next week now. So that tells me that probably that leadership is having trouble finding the votes to pass it. So that's good news from my perspective. The full budget bill, and that's what makes this a little unusual, is that in addition to all these policy changes that are in 2119, the KSDE budget is also in that bill. And the rest of the state government budget is in House Bill 2397. And it's ready to go on the House floor. And it's pretty unusual that we would have one agency budget, albeit the largest one in state government being education, being in a bill by itself with these other policy positions. Now the Senate has already passed on the full Senate floor their budget bill, and you may have heard the big thing they did in the area of education, in that they withheld $570 million worth of state general fund dollars that would for fiscal years 22 and 23, which would start July 1 of this year. And what they did was they held out the base aid increases from the years 4 and 5 of the Gannon compromise, and the state aid amount for the LOB, that the formula that school districts receive in terms of state aid for their LOB, and then both years of the high density weighting. So those are all three pieces that are really important to KCKPS and many other districts in the state. And the reason they did that is because of the federal COVID money and their interest in looking at potentially any of that money that could be used to what they call supplant state general fund dollars. Those of you that have been around a few years, if this sounds familiar, this same activity happened in 2009. If you remember, the economy tanked in 2008, and when President Obama was elected in 2008, one of the first things that the federal Congress passed and he signed was what they called the ARRA, which provided resources to states to try to help rebuild the economy. And the legislature did the exact same thing. They supplanted this federal state dollars with this federal money. And unfortunately, the problem with that is that's temporary dollars. You know, these are permanent expenses of state government. So it has to all be replaced at some point. And that therein lies a huge problem with doing that. The other issue I wanted to touch base on was the Senate Bill 235, which would require all school districts to provide an in-person learning option to all students. The original Bill 235 said by March 26th, and it wasn't limited. It was for future years as well. That failed on the House floor after passing the Senate, and the proponents of that proposal came back with and put a smaller version of that in Senate Bill 63, which would move the date back to March 31st and was only effective for this school year. So it would basically expire on June 30th of 2021, just in a couple of months. That passed the House 77-46 today. And so now what happens is it goes back to the Senate, and the Senate then has to decide whether they want to accept the changes that the House made or whether they want to go into a conference committee. And we had thought that because of the timing of this, how close we're getting to March 31st, that the Senate would accept the House change, but just about an hour before this meeting, the Senate non-concurred, and so now that bill now goes into a conference committee between the House and Senate. So it's not going to get to the governor, in the next day or two, the way it's going. So that was a little surprising. And then, of course, once the issue gets to the governor has 10 days to either veto it, sign it, or let it become law without her signature. Then it has to be published in the Kansas Register, and that could take a few days. So it's very unlikely that the Senate Bill 63 is going to become law anytime before early April. I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of these issues, or perhaps another issue that I try to focus in on the kind of issues of the week, of month, so to speak.
Mr. Brady, this is Wanda Page, and it behooves me, I always thought that local school boards could govern themselves. I know we have state laws and federal laws we have to follow, but you would think that Wichita and our district, along with Lawrence and a few others, might sue the legislature because they're not even, they just look at all of us being the same, and that's not fair, because Western Kansas, Central Kansas, Northeast Kansas, we're all different, and we have different needs, and our clientele is different, and it's just amazing how they just threw us all in a basket, and we're all supposed to abide by it, and that, to me, is not fair, and I don't see why we're not suing them, because we should be able to dictate what's best for our students and our community. And they don't really know us. Has it been that conversation? Anybody?
Yes, there's been quite a bit of discussion about that. In fact, that's probably the reason that Senate Bill 235 didn't pass the House, is that there was a lot of discussion, and we're able to convince enough House members that it really was a decision that ought to be made more at the local level. But this compromise bill, this was the brainchild of the Senate presidents, and that there's always that inclination people want to get their bill passed, and unfortunately people get pushed to vote for things. But I understand exactly what you're saying. If you recall last fall, when the governor suggested that school districts wait 2 weeks to start a school in September, and it ended up going to the State Board of Education to make their decision. I talked to 2 state board members, and they said that they heard from almost every legislator in their district that it was really that decision shouldn't be made by the governor. It should be made by local school boards. So I guess my point is it really, people in Topeka don't really adhere to local control unless it's something that they want to use to make the argument that they want to pass. And that's unfortunate.
Thank you.
Mr. Brady, I have a question for you, please.
Yes, ma'am.
First, how many years were you a legislator?
I was a legislator 16 years.
And how many years have you been a lobbyist?
This is my 21st session.
Okay, so.
I tell people I got elected when I was really young.
Okay. We can play that game, no problem. From your experience, I have 2 questions, please. When the Senate doesn't concur with the House version, as they did today with Senate Bill 63, and of course it's a crapshoot, do you think the bill will improve in favor that would benefit a district like KCK, or not improve?
I think the only way the bill is going to pass is with the provisions that are in 63 now. I'm thinking that the reason, and I haven't talked to the senators yet, but I'm thinking the reason why Chairman Bumgardner did not concur is because she liked the original bill that was in 63. It had the ACT Keys assessment in it, and they, as you know, in your committee, the chair took that part of the bill out of 63 and put this new form of 235 in it. And I'm thinking that Senator Bumgardner likes the original 63. So
but nothing that would sweeten up the deal on the date, the in-person.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the date thing is either going to have to be the March 31st or it's not going to pass the House. But I don't, that's just my belief. I haven't had a chance to talk to her. I intended to talk to her in the morning. It surprised me that they did that today, quite frankly.
And that they can put other bills in conference. as long as those four agree.
Yeah.
2 Democrats don't have to agree, the 4 Republicans can agree.
Yeah.
Okay,
But of course, that's gonna take time, and we're already at March the 23rd. So, the date is March 31st, so the longer they drag this out, the irrelevant the bill's gonna be,
yeah, but we can call a conference committee tomorrow at noon.
right?
Okay, so the second part of the question, from your conversations or listening to the Senate and the House discussion on funding, give us some more insight on at the end of the day, or we may not know for a while, what's the funding in your experience how's it gonna sift out? You already alluded to it, but could you repeat for some of those who maybe not?
Well, Commissioner Watson's speaking to the House K-12 committee tomorrow, and is gonna talk about the rules and regs that govern what they call ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. There's been 3 federal programs, 2 during the Trump administration and now 1 during the Biden administration. And they call those ESSER 1, 2, and 3. And the third one, we're just now starting to get the details on. And it's by far the biggest of the group. And I know Commissioner Watkins has some very strong beliefs that that money is off the table. And I think, I think that'll be the great debate of the veto session.
And what you mean is money is off the table for the legislature to dictate.
Correct, I'm sorry. The money's off the table.
But am I correct in believing that the legislators still think that they can dictate federal dollars? And if
Yes.
they do, this could prolong the debate.
Yes, I think that'll be the fundamental discussion of when we come back in May for the veto session. I think that will be ultimately what the legislature has to grapple with, is trying to, again, 90% of the money goes to the Title I schools. The Department of Ed only has 10% of the money. They're going to try to utilize the 10%, as I've been told, to try to. There's some districts that don't get very little Title I money, so they're going to try to put a floor on it so that every district gets, a certain amount of money, and they're going to use their 10% to do that. Legislature has other ideas for that as well. So.
Okay, thank you. See you tomorrow.
Okay.
Any other questions from board members? Thank you, Mr. Brady. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Brady, for the information.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Brady.
Thank you.
The next item is a request that the Kansas City, Kansas Board of Education accept as an informational item the amended 2021-2022 and proposed 2022-2023 early childhood calendars as submitted by Dr. Cook, Dr. Shaw, and Mr. Anderson.
Good evening, board, Dr. Miguel, Mr. Lopez. I'm here to present tonight for the amended 2021-2022 and proposed 2022-2023 early childhood calendars. I'm just going to give you a brief presentation on what is in the calendars and then ask for questions. So I'm going to first start with the part day calendar because we have 2 calendars. We have a part day calendar for our AM and PM sessions, and then we have a full day calendar, and they're a little bit different. So for the amended 2021-2022 part day calendar, the calendar must meet 465 hours according to KSDE. This amended calendar includes 617.5 total hours, and you can see the breakdown of those hours on the screen. Part day early childhood classrooms have Wednesdays off. Wednesdays are for planning and also for professional development because there is no planning time given on the other days of the week. There are 5 home visit days put at the beginning of the school year, which is something that we've been doing for the past 3 or 4 years. And then there's at least 1 home visit day or FAS day each month. There's a Friday in October where early childhood students do not have school to allow for staff to have their weekly planning and PD time because their normal planning PD day falls on the end of a quarter day. Early childhood students will not have school on kindergarten roundup day, so the early childhood staff can help facilitate the transition to kindergarten by being available at elementary sites. End of the quarter dates follow the district calendar, and all other days off for students and staff follow the district calendar. So I was just pointing out the differences from the district calendar for the part day calendar. And then I'll move on to the full day calendar. So for our full day calendar, we must meet 1,020 contact hours. So these are actual contact hours with students. So our amended calendar includes 1,180.5 total hours and 1,028.5 student contact hours. So we meet the requirement. Full day classrooms have early release on Wednesdays because they do have planning time every day of the week, so they don't need that planning time on Wednesdays. And then all other items are the same as the part day calendar. Then I'll go to the proposed 2022-2023 calendar. It's pretty much the same exact layout as 2021-2022. So we have to meet 465 hours. We're at 614. We'll have Wednesdays off for planning and professional development. There's 5 home visit days at the beginning of the school year. There is at least 1 home visit and FAS day each month. There's a Friday where EC students wouldn't have school to make up for the end of the quarter falling in the middle of the week. EC students will not have school on kindergarten roundup day. End of quarter dates will follow the district calendar, and all other days for students and staff follow the district calendar. And you'll see pretty much the same thing for the full day. We needed to meet 1020 contact hours, and we have 1,176.75 total, with 1,024.75 as contact hours. So I'm going to open it up for any questions as that ends my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. Any questions from board members? Seeing none. Thank you, Dr. Cook, for the information. Again, board, this was presented for informational purposes today, and it will come back around in front of the board next time for approval. So if you do have questions, please send them to Dr. Miguel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Thanks.
The next item is again an informational item that we're asking the Board of Education to accept, and it's the winter assessment update as submitted by Dr. Price, Interim Director of DERA, and recommended by.
While we load, good evening, board members, Dr. Miguel. It's very nice to be with you here today. It's very nice to present an update on student achievement during the winter assessment window. Hopefully you all can see and hear. Very big, broad, and generally the 3 primary pieces of evidence we collected for student achievement during this window were the FastBridge reading and math results. Results from the CAF interim predictives in the winter, and those are required this winter, which was a little bit of a change from what we did in the fall. And of course, we provided grades and feedback in the winter, which was required, while retaining the instructional focus of maintaining high quality instruction and the use of common assessment data in PLCs while in remote learning. Looking very briefly now at district level results for Fastbridge, and this is district-wide K-12A reading. We see that approximately 36% of students tested scored low risk or above. That is to say, they are very likely or likely to meet grade level objectives in reading. In elementary, similar percentage, roughly 32%, scored low risk or above. Again, likely or very likely to meet grade level objectives in reading. Middle school percentage, approximately 28% scoring low risk or above. And I should note, the blue on the graph and the orangey color, the blue is the CP, the orange is the low risk. So those two together equal the low risk or above there. High school, approximately half, 51%, scored again at low risk or above, very likely or likely to meet grade level objectives in reading. In math, similar percentages are seen, 30% district-wide scoring at low risk or above, 31% elementary scoring low risk or above, middle school slightly lower, 26% again scoring low risk or above. High school, 35% scoring low risk or above. And that brings us to now the predictive interim scores for the second interim test. There was a total of 6,342 ELA tests taken, and of those, 1,306, this is district-wide, were predicted to score proficient, which is approximately 16%. Number of math tests are slightly less because there's no math interim test for 10th grade. Of those, 583 predicted to score proficient. That would be roughly 11%. But we should note here, this testing sample is heavily weighted toward 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th, 8th, and 10th graders. What we found is with the 3rd and 4th grade exams on the iPads, splitting the camera 3 ways between Zoom, the test item, and the passage, especially in the ELA that they had to read, caused some difficulty with readability of items for the younger students. And so it led to the decision to go ahead and suspend 3rd and 4th grade testing. However, some schools did test, they did try it, they did work through the issues, but in those ELA tests in particular, heavily weighted in the math test, again, toward the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 10th grade students there. Regarding secondary grades 6 through 12, there is a wide distribution here between A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's across middle school and high school. We see roughly approximately half across high school and middle school are earning at least one A or one B. Nearly half have at least one C. Some have a D, but nearly 2 out of 3 students recorded an F for the second quarter in high school, and nearly 60% recorded at least one F in middle school. But the F category itself includes students with all zeros, any I's, NC's, or W's. So it's kind of a wide category in that way as well. Looked at more holistically, though, in terms of high school GPA, we see that 47% of high school students earned a semester 1 GPA of 2.0 or greater, and slightly over half, 56% of high school students have earned a cumulative GPA of 2.0 or better as well. So in terms of some applications for future assessment and research, we'll require the Fastbridge screening during the spring during in-person learning. Explore some relationships between the spring screening, knowing that will be in the context of in-person learning, and the winter screening results, which were during remote learning as well, by way of comparisons and some descriptions. We'll strengthen connections between the skills in Fastbridge, since it's more of a skills-based test, and the standards that we might see in CAP testing and grading both before and after CAP summative testing. I'd like to analyze some of the relationship between the semester 1 GPA and cumulative GPA in high school, knowing that the remote learning to in-person learning transition could be interesting to look at. And I'd like to evaluate some of these results in view of some emerging research on what's coming out of just the community of research and COVID and learning loss. And by that I mean preliminary research is beginning to indicate that ELA reading gains are more or less holding result-wise, but where learning loss is occurring, it's being more acutely felt perhaps in the math area. So to the extent that the results I've described here indicate that for us as well, might indicate that, offer an additional point of comparison and generalizability. And of course, update you with comparisons and descriptions in the future regarding remote learning, in-person learning, and the transition between as well. And now I'd like to hand it over to Matt Anderson, who is behind me. He's going to talk about some instructional implications for the spring and summer. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Price.
Good evening, board, again. Just wanted to give you all some instructional implications for the spring and summer based on the data that you were presented. Knowing that our primary goal for students is their safety, well-being, and ensuring they are provided with high-quality curriculum and instruction and high-impact instructional strategies. This spring, we are going to continue to use this data along with the priority standards that have been identified in our guaranteed and viable curriculum to focus strongly on standards-based planning and assessment. Strong standards-based planning will ensure that we emphasize an effective first teach focused on student mastery, where all students have an opportunity to meet grade level standards. Along with the data presented this evening, we will continue to use formative assessment checks to assess student understanding during lessons and provide feedback throughout the lessons to affirm correctly understood content, clarify misunderstood content, and extend student thinking. We are aware that there will be gaps in understanding when our students return, and therefore we will align our instruction to grade level standards while still providing extra support, enrichment, or variation of the work to meet the students' needs for every student when necessary. Finally, as we continue to plan for summer school, we will use this winter and the spring data when we get that collected from FastBridge and teacher and principal input to determine which students they would recommend that would benefit most from our summer school program. So that's how we will be using the data from the winter and the spring moving forward. So that is all I have. Are there any questions for Dr. Price or myself?
Yes, I have a question. Will students be allowed to make up the work that they miss? If we have these I's, these incompletes, zeros, are they going to be allowed to make up that work?
Ms. Page, yes, they will. We actually extended, so after every quarter, due to the pandemic, instead of giving students 2 weeks to complete missing assignments or to help them master standards that they may not have mastered yet, we're actually extending that to 4 weeks. So we're increasing the amount of time students have to make up work and do that as well. So it's a month long after the grading window closes.
And what about those students who had connectivity problems? Some of them had problems from the beginning, even up to today. And that's not their fault if they can't connect. So what are we doing for them? Will they have an extension? Is there some way to go through and find out who had these connectivity problems? Because they did, and we want to make sure we're giving them every opportunity to do their work. Because if I can't connect, I can't learn. And there were a percentage of students who had that problem.
We will need to look into that, Ms. Page.
Hi, Dr. Anderson. This is Dr. Nguyen.
Yes.
And help me understand, FastBridge is what now?
It is our screener. So according to the KSDE, when they moved into the dyslexia initiative, all districts had to have a dyslexia screener or a screening assessment. Mm-hmm. And so we purchased this last year to account for that. It's similar to what we use with NWEA MAP.
Okay. Now, what tool, assessment tool, and when will KCKPS be required to submit data to the Kansas State Department of Education in the format of level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4?
So that will be used on the CAP, and Ben, you can come up too if you have any more information. But we'll use the CAP summative assessment, which will be required by the state of Kansas. So we are planning to administer the CAP summative assessment. Our window is open April 17th to May 7th. Thank you, I had to remember that. And so that will give us the levels that you're talking about, a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. As I mentioned in our planning prep meeting, Dr. Nguyen, we also will need to put in some information to our KISA report, which will require us to give data on academics. And so we'll put some of this information into the KISA report for this year as well, since we did have to pause on that.
Okay, and last question, please. Because they are just two different tools, is there any way your person, and I'll thank the person that came before you, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name.
Dr. Price.
Dr. Price.
Yeah, can you convert any of those numbers you provided us into similarly level 1, 2, 3, or 4?
I would like to get the full range of data in before I would look at a relationship from the spring, from the winter, and certainly what we did in the fall. Optional.
So is the answer yes or no?
I think we'll find a relationship.
After you get all your data, is the answer yes or no?
I'm sorry?
After you get all that, you said you would love to have more data, and we are data people.
Yes.
So is the answer the question is, after you get all your data, is the answer yes or no?
I think there's going to be a relationship. I don't think there would be a one-to-one conversion between cap level and like college pathway, some risk, low risk, and high risk. But I think there will be a relationship there that we can, that I would love to look at.
Okay. And again, this is what I told, board members, I told Mr. Anderson at the planning meeting that in my opinion, the board doesn't need to be the last people to know of scores, grades, things like that. You need to be prepared to answer community, parents, questions.
Absolutely.
So that's I asked. So thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you. Other questions from board members for Mr. Anderson or Dr. Price?
I was just going to say, sorry if I interrupted anyone, Dr. Miguel will be sharing in her Friday update to the board a little bit of a deeper analysis of our failing scores. And so you'll get that in your Friday update, as well as our attendance. So we wanted to make sure that you had our attendance rate for quarter 1, 2, and 3, as well as what we were doing to get attendance back up. So just wanted you to be aware of that, so you have that information. So thank you, everyone.
And Mr. Lopez, I'm sorry, I forgot one question for Mr. Anderson. What did you decide, Mr. Anderson, the strategy would be to connect with remote students about the mandatory testing?
Oh, the mandatory testing. We are going to reach out to families that are in remote. We're still working on the plan because they have to take the assessment in person. They cannot take it remotely. That's a state requirement. We're going to work on a plan for trying to get some of those students in, and we're going to work our best to do that. Unfortunately, we may not get everybody, but we will use the code that's provided by the state to document anyone that wasn't able to take that assessment.
Okay, thank you, and I'll ask you again when we get closer to that date.
Okay, thank you.
And we will share an update as soon as we have that plan in place. Thank you, Mr. Anderson, Dr. Price. And Mr. Anderson, don't go very far because you're up for the next item. We're asking the Kansas City Board of Education to accept as an informational item, although we have a small portion that we will ask for an approval. An update on school reentry as submitted by Mr. Anderson and Dr. Shaw. He's coming back.
I knew I had to present, and I knew I had the presentation with me. So again, good evening, board. President Lopez, Vice President Page, Dr. Miguel, and all board members. Tonight, we're going to provide you with an update on how our schools are preparing for our students' return, as well for that in-person moment, and then also our remote learning mode. They're also going to share with you our in-person and remote learning mode percentages, as well as percent ranges across the district. During this meeting tonight, we will also be bringing to the board a change in student return date based on new information coming to us from the Kansas legislature and asking for your approval this evening. After that, we will provide you with a brief update on staff accommodations from our Human Resources Department. We'll get a transportation and nutritional services update, a health services update, and then finally, a reminder of our mask and social distancing mandates for staff and students. So to get us started, Dr. Kimberly Shaw will be sharing how our schools are planning and preparing for our students' return.
Good evening, Board, President Lopez, Vice President Page, and Dr. Miguel. Since our last board meeting, which was just right before spring break, so it doesn't feel like that long ago, our schools have been busy working together, both staff and administrators, to identify how to serve both our in-person and remote learners. School leaders have met individually with their instructional improvement officers, where they've had the opportunity to share the innovative thinking regarding plans to support both our in-person and remote learners. And two common approaches have emerged. One approach is remote teaching, and this is where one teacher may be assigned to serve as a teacher of the remote learners for one grade level or content area, or perhaps a grade level split, while others serve the in-person students. The second approach is simultaneous teaching, and we've talked about this before. In this model, teachers will sustain their current roster of students. This is a common request across many of the teachers. They didn't want to shift their kids, they wanted to keep their students. And this is where they teach both in-person and remote learners with the assistance of technology. This does not require the teacher and the remote learners to be online all day. Rather, there are scheduled times for remote learners to log into the classroom. Concurrent teaching methods will be utilized, such as a flip-flop model, which is where a teacher engages all learners for a short time and then would work with the remote learners while the in-person learners are working on independent learning activities. They would then end that session with their remote learners and then be able to return back to their in-person learners. Board, you'll recall that all staff returned to buildings yesterday, so we were excited to have everyone return. And while the connectivity hubs are still active and teachers continue to teach all students, both asynchronously and synchronously, staff are working to finalize lots of items regarding preparation and planning for students to enter our doors here in the next several days. This includes, but is not limited to, finalizing rosters, class schedules, student schedules. Staff are ensuring learning spaces are set up to meet the social distancing requirements and all other risk mitigations as outlined in our safety plan, to include processes that would support contact tracing, such as assigning seats, for just one example. Staff are practicing and refining routines and procedures, such as hallways and stairwell traffic patterns, student entry and exit of the building, recess and restroom schedules and procedures, assigning students and student seats in lunchrooms, and ensuring that the PPE is readily and available. Mr. Anderson spoke earlier about the instructional focus that we're focusing on as we return to school, and Mr. Sanders spoke to that last week as well. So I won't go into too much depth there, but I would also want to not forget how important relationships are in this process as we bring our students and staff back together. And we're committed to ensuring that ensuring care and respect for all students, and that we create a positive, energetic, safe, and orderly climate and culture in our classrooms and schools as a whole. Additionally, we're going to put have attention focused on social emotional needs and the development of our students as they adjust to returning to school. Our social emotional learning support staff will also be readily available to address any trauma that students may have experienced in this past year, and so that they are able to continue to grow and to learn. So as it was requested, how are we moving forward with supporting and assuring that our students that are going to have chosen to be remote, or the parents have elected for their child to be remote, how are we working to make sure that they're going to have connectivity? Well, in order to finalize student rosters, student schedules, class rosters, that's critical. And so parents right now have been given the option, it's been reopened, that they have the autonomy to change their mind. And it is on our Twitter feed, that parents understand that. It's been pushed out through our communications department, that they have till April 4th. So daily, our schools are working on those student schedules and class rosters, and so calls are being made to ensure that these students who have chosen to be remote do indeed have connectivity at home. Most of our students that were invited, we know most of our students were invited to the connectivity hub if they have connectivity issues. So most of them are already in school, so that's helpful. But those that elected not to come to connectivity, we're working to see how can we either help them to feel more comfortable with our practices and our planning in our schools, possibly providing some virtual tours if need be, and also just really trying to help them feel comfortable. If not, we still have hotspots and those equipment and devices that we've been using to ensure that they can stay connected as much as possible. So by April 4th, if not sooner, schools should know that where their students are who have chosen to be remote and might be having connectivity struggles. I wanted to show you also, just to kind of paint a picture for you, the percentage of our in-person learners versus our remote learners by level. So at our last board meeting, we shared with you by number. We thought it'd be interesting to just kind of show the spread of the range of what parents had elected prior to this week where we reopened the opportunity to change. So we know these numbers could fluctuate. So you can see by level, the overall number, percent in person. Those that are in early childhood programs, we've had 75% indicate that they want to return, and 24% say that indicate that they want to be remote. I know that doesn't quite equal to 100%, we just rounded up. The range, though, across sites for in-person ranges from 60.8%, perhaps at one school, to another school, 82.3% of their learners are wanting to return. And you can see the same range for those that are wanting to remain remote, ranging anywhere from 17% up to almost 40%. So you can see that elementary, it's kind of similar to the early childhood. At middle school, we see a significant change with about 65% of our families and students choosing to return in person, and 36% choosing to remain remote. Again, you can see the range is a lot tighter than what it is with the early childhood and elementary, that it's between 61 and 68 that want to return, and 32 to 39 across our middle school sites. Lastly, you see high school is a little higher than middle school. This does include Sumner, 8th grade. Unfortunately, we weren't able to pull that out at the time that we pulled this data for this work. And we're looking at 67% of students returning, with about 33% choosing to stay remote. Again, you have heard before from Ms. Lisa Garcia Stewart that enrollment is we are still enrolling students every day. So definitely we know that this could continue to change even more so, in addition to families having that opportunity to change their minds. So this is just a different picture for you to get a feel for what buildings are looking at as they consider their steps in preparing and being fully planned as students return.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. And I want to highlight something Dr. Shaw shared with us, how now that everybody is in person, how they are preparing the room for social distancing, working on schedules, working on rosters, updating them as families update their choices, planning and the procedures for how we're going to take kids back and forth from cafeteria and how we're going to maintain them in the social distancing, all of that while still teaching. They are still teaching every single day. So just to give you an idea of how hard teachers, principals, and all school staff are working. Let's not forget they are still having class every day as we have been remotely. So I appreciate the hard work.
Thank you, Dr. Miguel. Thank you, Dr. Shaw. Next, give you an update on Senate Bill 235. So, Board, you are well aware that on Tuesday, March 16th, Senate Bill 235 failed to pass. However, there's currently another Senate bill out there, Senate Bill 63, that Mr. Brady discussed earlier in his presentation, that would require school districts to have a full in-person option available to all students by Wednesday, March 31st for the 2021 school year only. As Dr. Miguel has mentioned in her K-12 budget committee hearings, she has said that KCKPS will follow whatever bill is passed into law and will comply with the necessary return date for our students. So in order for our families and our district to prepare properly for the actual date of return, we are proposing the next following steps. So first, even if the bill does not pass, we want to ensure that we set a final date, and it's established this evening. Therefore, our plan would be to move forward with March 31st for return in-person learning. That is different than what we had sent to you last week, knowing the new information that we were given about Senate Bill 63. So therefore, recommendation is 5 days a week with Wednesdays as early release days, similar as past years. Our goal is to keep a consistency for our families from the end of the year and then when we start the year. So they understand Wednesdays will continue to stay that early release time of 2 hours. This would all begin on, again, March 31st. Due to early childhood schedules on Wednesdays with part-time classes not being in session, and due to specific early childhood transportation needs, we would continue with an April 5th start for early childhood. Finally, Friday, April 2nd is currently set as our half-day district in-service and our half-day records prep for third quarter grades. We can't change this per our negotiated agreement. They have to have that time. So that week would only consist of the 31st and April 1st as kids being in person. So I'm going to open it up. I see some faces. So we're going to say, we're asking that the board approve tonight, the beginning March 31st, the remainder of the school year be 5 days a week with Wednesdays dedicated to early release. I'll open up to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Board members, questions for what we've heard? Again, there's a recommendation from staff on the floor to begin classes March 31st, in-person learning March 31st. Any questions, thoughts?
I make a motion that we approve the recommendation as presented.
I second it.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion?
So, Mr. Anderson, we're asking parents to send their kids to school on Wednesday.
Correct.
For early dismissal. Send them to school on Thursday, but not send them on Friday.
Yes, correct.
Okay, it's going to be kind of confusing for parents.
And if I may, we brought in the principal advisory group just to share this and get their feedback. We have learned to do that before bringing proposals to the board because they give us the perspective from the school. And part of the feedback that we got from principals was it sounds to them like a good plan. We know that because, like Dr. Shaw said, we will have to build those relationships, those in-person relationships again. April 5th is when the new quarter starts. So this gives us a day and a half to start getting used to being in person, to practice some of those procedures that we will have to have in place. If it doesn't happen Wednesday and Thursday, it's going to have to happen on Monday, which is the start of the first quarter. So they appreciated having a couple of days before the quarter starts so that they can get those procedures and those getting used to being in school out of the way. And I would mention, had we been in person, those days would have been like that. That Wednesday would have been half day, and that's what we were intent on, keeping it half day so as not to confuse anyone. And then that Friday would have been off.
So it's kind of a soft start.
It is, very much so. And to follow up with what Dr. Miguel had mentioned, the advisory group also discussed the importance of having that Wednesday afternoon to kind of work out some of the kinks, hear from the teachers what's working, what's not working, what can we get figured out, what can we tweak so that we can try it on Thursday, and then we've got Friday to kind of get ready for that next Monday. So although it does sound a little crazy with starting on a Wednesday, half day, and only one day, we felt that it was the best option and that it would comply with the state law.
Okay,
And then kids will be exhausted after a day and a half in person, so then they get a long
So
weekend.
it's kind of an advantage having a soft start then with the day, basically a day and a half.
Definitely.
Okay.
And I do have a question. I think it's great that they do get that practice before jumping in. And from my understanding, all the teachers are back in classroom right now anyway. So they are there, they are present, they're working through some things. And I think I really trust that our principals and staff, their principals and staff, they're doing a great job of communication with parents. Great job of sending out reminders and just having that touch. So I'm truly confident that our leaders and principals in each of school will be able to communicate, because the parents, honestly, who's already chose to send their children back, they're kind of been waiting to go ahead and send them. So with 85% of our students going back and parents wanting their students to come, I guarantee you, as soon as, we make a decision, they're looking, they knew we were having a meeting tonight, they're looking for when to go back. And our parents, one thing I love about our community is that we communicate with each other, we send reminders, and our community is really close-knit. So I love that, we'll be able to at least send out information, the classroom tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be discussion to help with the seamless transition of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lopez and Dr. Miguel and Mr. Anderson, I have expressed my concerns to you, so you're quite well. Again, protocol for all the other board members, we've had this conversation, so there's no surprises. I will not be able to support the recommendation because I am in the belly of the beast. I'll just say it like that. I would respectfully disagree with you, Mr. Anderson, that half day on Wednesday does not meet the letter of the law. And again, I've already expressed this to Dr. Miguel. The extreme communication, words used, all you have to do is play back the tapes, that the intent of the legislation is to have 5 days a week in person. Now, the soft rollout, I understand. The response to the legislature is that you haven't been in class for over a year. So if you're not ready, then something's wrong. I'm just providing the reality check, people. And respectfully, I'm being respectful with the truth, the reality. You can take it or not. I'm just one vote. But because of the half day for the rest of the semester, I cannot support that because that doesn't meet the letter of the law.
If I may respond, Dr. Nguyen, the law says 5-day full-time in person, and for us, for as long as I can remember, full-time 5 days means early release on Wednesday. So I understand we will have to disagree here, but I think it's a question of interpretation. That has been full-time for us.
And I respectfully agree with you. We will be able to disagree because whether or not that is what KCK has been doing, that is not the intent of the law. And I would be the last person to challenge it in the Kansas legislature, because you always know I am 500% fighting for KCK, but I'm bringing you the reality, and we can interpret it any way we want, because again, if you don't understand the words I'm using, just listen to the fact that the end is not here yet. So, thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the feedback.
Mr. Lopez, I just wanted to remind everyone to write their state legislatures to write the State Board of Education, because it's not right for them to decide that for us. But I understand the beast that we're dealing with. I'm just saying, those who can and who will, we need to write these people. We need to let them know our concern.
Thank you. Thank you all. Any other comments or questions? Okay, there's a motion and a second. Ms. Smith, would you please roll call vote?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, because of the Wednesday early release, I respectfully had to vote no.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the thoughtful questions and dialogue from our board and staff. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Board. To keep us moving forward, I'm going to have Ms. Jody Mitchell from our Human Resources Department just give you a brief update on our staff accommodations. And I believe she's online, so I'll let her start.
I am. Good evening again. Yeah, I wanted to provide you an update to the FMLA accommodations that our employees have requested, just give you some numbers. So to date, we have 50 employees that have been granted accommodation to work remotely. Another 64 employees have been denied an accommodation to work remotely. And some of those reasons for the denial, there are a couple different reasons, but they could include that the paperwork was never turned in. And that was a large group of employees, about 37 employees never turned in their paperwork. We have 2 employees that principals could not accommodate, and those 2 employees did return to work. Our special education department was required to return, and there's 21 employees, and 2 of those employees decided to take FMLA instead of returning. And then we had 4 employees who their accommodation did not qualify. The reason for requesting leave did not qualify under the FMLA guidelines. We then have 12 more employees that are still in their window to return paperwork for accommodation. So that leaves us with a total of 126 employees that have requested accommodation. And that is all I have, unless there are questions.
If there are no questions, I'm just going to.
Mitchell, help me do the math again. FMLA, correct me if I'm wrong. The question is, if you are on FMLA, can you work?
Yes. Well, the requirements that we had set forth were that to grant an accommodation, you first had to be approved for FMLA.
So
now, if you were approved, can you hear me?
Jody, if I may clarify, you were, to be considered, you had to qualify.
Yes, you first had to be approved under FMLA.
Mr.
And then based on the job description, it was determined, can that position work remotely based on what is required of the job description? And then, of course, what are the staffing needs of the building or the location?
I'll step in here.
Go
This
ahead.
is exactly
Did
the
I
process
ask-
we outlined a few weeks ago. All we said is that a person had to meet the medical requirements for the FMLA and turn that paperwork in. And then we would determine if an accommodation could be met, if the person themselves wanted to have an accommodation. So if somebody doesn't want to have an accommodation, that's up to them. They can still take FMLA leave. So that's the distinction. So I hope that clarifies, but we can
Thank
send that
you.
out back again.
I
if
would,
people-
my question is, if you are determined and you take FMLA, can you work remotely? And what was the answer?
No, if you take FMLA, you do
you
not
don't.
work. That's correct.
Yeah,
Okay,
if you take FMLA, you cannot work under the statute. So if you decide to take FMLA,
Right.
then you cannot work remotely. If you qualify for FMLA, which means you've got medical reason to be off of work, and you request an accommodation so that you can work, then the district works to try to sort out whether that accommodation can be met or not.
Yes.
Okay, good, because the public needs to know the distinction there.
Yeah.
So based on then those, how many are then on FMLA, please? I'm sorry, I
I
couldn't
think,
keep
Jody, what'd you say was 2?
There's 2 that chose to take FMLA instead of returning to work.
Right.
Okay, so those are 2 vacancies that are clearly there, correct?
They have returned
They have returned?
to work.
Jody,
thought they-
you said they
FMLA.
took FMLA leave, so they are not at work. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
I don't have the numbers in front
I'm
of me.
sorry, yes, okay, I'm sorry. They, yes.
Okay, I don't mean to confuse
Yeah.
you.
No, I'm fine, I'm sorry.
Now, so to get an accommodation, you only have to qualify
Right.
for FMLA.
Mm-hmm.
Those who then receive accommodations, who then are eligible to work remotely, amount to how many, please?
You were cutting out a little bit. Did you
Jody?
say how many?
How many did we make that were eligible for FMLA and who asked for an accommodation, did we accommodate?
50.
Thank you.
50, okay.
Okay.
And help me again, you said there were 12 pending? Is that where the 12 was?
Yes, 12 employees that, and it depends on when they submitted their request. So if they submitted it today, let's say, they would have a period of time to get that paperwork back to us. So we have 12 of those that are in that window of being able to submit paperwork.
And so help me, what was the 120?
That was the total that asked for
that asked.
accommodations.
Okay. Okay,
We
so
can
thank
send you these numbers. It's a little
later
bit,
to talk.
she's on another Zoom and I'm up here at the podium, so I don't have all the numbers memorized, but we can certainly send those to you.
Yeah, if you want the exact numbers, I can put it in the Friday update, and then you'll have them.
That'd be
Excuse me,
easier.
I don't need the exact numbers. I just wanted to make sure I had them to write them
Okay.
down, so appreciate
Right.
that. So I will then ask about vacancies when we get to the HR report. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you,
You're
Jody.
welcome.
Thank you, Kelly. Next, we'll have Ms. Lenora Miller give you an update on nutritional services and transportation.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
I'll
evening.
be very short and sweet. So now with the March 31st return of students, we will have to plan on March 26th as the last date for meal deliveries, okay? And all the curbside meals will continue, but they will be a little different on hours and pickup and how they're picked up. So they're going to be available for all the remaining remote students and available in the front office at the school from 1 to 2. And the families will need to pre-order that they desire to continue with the curbside meals by communicating with their school office. Okay, so that's an update from Nutritional Services. An update from Transportation. On March the 12th, we mailed out all eligible bus riders, general education, eligible for bus service. We mailed them a letter to describe their bus route, pickup time, and stop location. And the specialty route letters will be mailed once all changes are completed. And that's my quick update.
Ms. Miller?
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. This is Wanda Page. And I know we can't do everything, but I worry about on the curbside for those mothers who have a lot of babies and not having transportation and having to walk to the school to pick up the meal. There is nothing we can do for them?
I actually am going to be very frank with you. We have lost many transportation employees through this pandemic, and we are still trying to cover bus routes And we are gonna have to be utilizing other people, other employees in survival mode, and we're still not there yet. And we're working very diligently to try to get that covered, so it's a choice we have to make.
I'll just add in there, Ms. Page, I agree, I mean, that, and I think we all have a heart for that. I do think we have great resources and wraparound services through student services and with our counselors and behavioral health therapists in our district. Part of our social emotional trauma-informed school district and the work that we do in this is to try to provide some of those wraparound services. So I'm hopeful that we've got great staff who can help provide that. I mean, just today we had students or staff who were working the Harvester's food line at Wyandotte High School to make sure families who don't have food have that. So all that to say is I hear you, Ms. Page, and I think we have staff that will work to make sure those families who reach out and ask for support, or that they know will need that extra support, that we will do our very best to support them. So.
And just like with the families that still have connectivity challenges, we will encourage those families to choose in person if this is a challenge for them. You know, we are eager to get students in the classroom and in the school in person. So they will always have that option if they realize that keeping the children at home may present an additional challenge for the parents.
But we just said, the law said they have a choice.
They do have a choice, yes.
No, I hear what you're saying. They have a choice. And we're supposed to meet them whatever they choose. So if there's a remote and they got a connectivity, then we're supposed to be able to provide that for them and make sure they have the connection.
Right, and that's why we're still offering the hotspots and everything else we were providing. But like Ms. Miller said, we can only work with the limitations that we have, and now that we have kids in person, we have to make sure they can get to school and that we can get them back home, and we have to make sure that we can feed them in school, because that's where we're teaching them. So I know the staff, both nutritional and transportation, have stretched themselves to the max. So I know they are doing everything they can, and we appreciate that, Ms. Miller.
Thank you.
I guess I'll ask the perennial question. I don't know who to ask it to, so I guess I'll ask you, Dr. Miguel. So have we put out massive notices to hire transportation workers and nutritional workers? I haven't seen any.
Yes, Ms. Miller can respond to that, but the short answer is yes. And
Where are they?
Yes, we have actually searched, and this pandemic has hit pretty well nationwide. Driving away drivers, availability. We're not the only school district that is struggling, unfortunately.
And I understand that, but I will have the same question for HR. I'm not a new fan, one would think, of billboards, but I see billboards all around. Amazon hiring, and they're hiring really. I don't see billboards, I don't see any ads, maybe I'm not looking, even on our cable station. Are they saying nutritional workers, transportation workers? And if I'm wrong, please correct me, I'll turn the television on.
We can look into that. An example of one creative way in which we are advertising is when you drive toward this building on 59th Street, you will see a huge banner right at the entrance of the transportation hub down here that says we are hiring. I just noticed it, big and bright. So I know we are getting creative and trying to catch people's attention, but we're going to look into billboards and the cable channels for sure. Thank you for that feedback.
Good. I'm excited, so thank you.
I'd like to add one more note to that is we are going to be campaigning through our HR department and our communications department that Dr. Ronald Beck came up with a great idea for us is to make us little business cards, because we have a shortage of nutritional services staff as well. And when we see good customer service out in the community, we are going to be passing these business cards and say, please consider employment at KCK. And we'll be promoting that pretty hard.
Like mini recruitment fairs.
Yes.
Very nice.
Well, good.
Thank you very much.
Sorry I had to ask the question before I got the good news.
So the bad news is, Ms. Morris is not here this evening, but you get the next best thing, to get your update on health services.
And that is you, Mr.
That is
Anderson?
me. That is me. I'm going to do the best that I can with the notes I've been given. So if there are any questions that you have for Ms. Morris, we can get those to Dr. Miguel, and we can get those on to Ms. Morris. So the average number of cases per day in Wyandotte County, according to the March 8th through March 14th scorecard, was 14 cases.
We can't hear anything on this end.
Oh, darn it.
He'll have to restate, please.
Okay. So, can you hear me?
Just restate that, Matt.
Okay, I just want to make sure you can hear me.
Now we can.
According to the Wyandotte County COVID scorecard, the average number of cases per day in Wyandotte County is currently at 14, and this was done on March 8th through March 14th again. The percent positivity rate is decreasing, and so they're at actually 9%, which is quite low compared to what we've seen in the past. And then the hospitalizations in the metro area are continuing to decrease as well. So this is all good signs that there's coming to some normalcy, but we'll continue to watch the numbers and the signs as we move forward. Just to give you an update on the health services staffing side of things, we can say that we are now fully staffed with all 44 nursing positions in the district, so all sites will have a nurse when our students return. One thing that we know is going to happen, any unscheduled absences will continue to impact that staffing, and therefore we're continuing to work with the staffing agency that we work with to provide subs each day so that we can plan to have nurses in those places when we have certain nurses out. So that is the update on staffing of our nurses. A vaccination update. Staff can continue to receive the vaccine, however, the staff have to now live in Wyandotte County. So they have to be Wyandotte County residents in order to receive the vaccine in Wyandotte County. Staff who do not live or who live outside of Wyandotte County can still sign up through their local health department and through their local pharmacies. So if there's staff out there that need vaccines, if you live in Wyandotte County, go get it. If you live in another district, go get it. Whatever you want to do. So.
Mr. Anderson, sorry to interrupt. I'll just take a quick moment as
Yes.
a PSA for an encouragement of our staff and our community. Part of the reason that the health department is now requiring folks to be Wyandotte County residents is that through these first phases of the vaccines, 12% of Wyandotte County residents have received at least one dose, and only 7% of Wyandotte County residents are fully vaccinated.
Wow.
That's the lowest percentage of vaccination in the state. And so that's part of the reason that the health department is now pushing for Wyandotte County residents, for their vaccines to go to Wyandotte County residents, to increase the percentage of Wyandotte County residents who become vaccinated. So I'd encourage any and everyone who's eligible, who would like to receive the vaccine, to please do so. It's an important public health matter, and so I just wanted to share that there is plenty of vaccine, and you can get vaccinated, and they're opening more phases of the vaccine, and I just would encourage any and everyone who wants to be vaccinated to make sure that they're informed and sign up to be vaccinated. Sorry, I just wanted to share that.
You're fine.
Thank you.
for
We
that
appreciate
message, Mr. Lopez. Per the local health order for education from February 26, we are required to do COVID surveillance testing of high school students who play sports and who participate in band or choir. As noted on the slide, you'll notice that that's free of charge to the students and the district, and it will be completed at the school, and it's going to be coordinated with the Wyandotte County Health Department. And so that is part of the local health order from Wyandotte. And then to finish us up, we wanted to make sure that you all know and that the community knows that the health and safety of our students and staff is our #1 priority. And therefore, we wanted to remind the board and the community that we will follow our employee and staff mask and social distancing protocols. As mentioned by our HR department, there are consequences and steps supervisors can take when employees do not follow these guidelines. And then finally, the following addendum that you see on your screen was made to the Student Code of Conduct to include unsafe conditions, which addresses the mask wearing and maintaining social distancing for our students. And this was approved by the board at a previous board meeting. Since this is a Class 3 offense, the principals will follow Class 3 offense disciplinary actions outlined in our Student Code of Conduct. So just to finish this out, wanted to make sure when our students and staff, when we've returned, we are going to be following these things very closely.
And just to add, Mr. Anderson, these mask mandates are an effort to keep everyone safe. The idea is not to be punitive, but we do have to keep staff and students safe. And I appreciate the good news of how the numbers are moving in the right direction, but another PSA, if I may, it is so important that the community continues the effort of masking at all times and keeping social distance and practicing safety measures, because the last thing that we want is to start school in person and then have to quarantine again. So this is a plea from us that once we get students in person, we do not want to send them back. We do not want anyone getting sick. So as much as possible to practice the mitigating efforts that we have in place. And not just in school, but at home, when you go out and go shopping, we need to keep everyone safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miguel. Thank you, board.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Questions for Mr. Anderson? Ms. Page, go ahead.
Yeah, on the distancing protocol for staff, will they have virtual staff meetings?
Yes, we're doing virtual staff meetings until further notice.
And that is the guidance that was shared with the whole district, Ms. Page, 2 or 3 months ago, and we haven't changed it, and we are getting ready, Mr. Birch is getting ready to send a reminder, just so that we understand the fact that we are in person doesn't mean we're gonna relax all the guidelines, because like I said, we want to make sure that once we are in person, we stay in person. Thank you for that question, because that's an important reminder.
So what does that mean for us as a board? If they're saying that this is sort of like a staff, but we're saying it is a board meeting. So are we meeting in person or are we virtual? Because that's what the health department said.
Yeah, so I'll take that. In conversations, I think we're able to socially distance, mask up, and have these meetings in person. And I think it's a show of support as well, asking our staff and our students to be in person. We can take the proper mitigations and precautions to keep each other and ourselves safe. If you're in the boardroom tonight, you can see what I'm seeing, that people are separated, have their own tables, everyone's wearing a mask. We're at least 3 feet distance at least between each other. So we're able to do that, and still, it's not a full room, so we're able to limit the number of folks. So I'm highly recommending and asking for our board to meet in person. I think it's we can do it in a safe way.
Thank you.
So
and you can see right there on the screen, they were just showing how we are all distanced.
Right.
Thank you.
So we've been meeting in person now for the last couple of board meetings, and I think we're getting it down to make sure that we can do it in a safe way. Also, some of the CDC guidelines, the health department guidelines, for those that have been vaccinated, the guidelines state that we can come together in a room in a safe way. Again, mask wearing. I understand not everyone may have been vaccinated, and that's and we'll work through that. So Ms. Page, long answer to say, my hope is that yes, we will be able to meet in person moving forward.
And Mr. Lopez, just for clarification, we are still not having the public attend the meetings, correct?
Correct, yes. At this point, again, just for the size of the room, and that's something we'll have to work through in order to make sure we keep everyone safe.
Dr. Miguel, help me remember bus drivers. When bus drivers are alone on the bus, are they required to wear masks?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I drove by one today and checked, and he was wearing a mask. I couldn't see if he had students in it, but, in the bus, but he was wearing a mask.
Thank you. Other questions or discussion from the board? Great. Thank you, Mr. Anderson and team, for the information. Board, as always, if questions arise, please email Dr. Miguel. She and I have conversations constantly, and she's always more than happy and willing to answer any questions or find the answers. So as we bring our students back and as we're going through all of these measures, please feel free to email Dr. Miguel or myself, and we can get answers to your questions. But I would also say, as we are bringing staff and students back, when we do pull Dr. Miguel aside or staff, it takes some of their time from teaching and being good administrators. So we just want to be cognizant of how much time we're pulling away from them. But
Thank you.
always
I
ask your
appreciate that.
questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Always willing, and all your questions and feedback are very welcome.
Mr. Lopez, can I ask a generic question of Mr. Goheen?
Yes, Dr. Nguyen.
Mr. Goheen, as I am always flattered by the pushback of many of my questions, if I were to mail my questions to the entire board members before a meeting, would I be in violation of open meetings?
If you communicated or sent the email to all the board members with a question or an item, that communication by itself would not be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. If somebody responded to all on that, that would be, because then it would become a meeting.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, and I hope you're correct. Thank you.
Yeah. If I'm not, you'll be acting on my legal advice, which should give you a pretty good defense.
No, if you're not, I'll get another lawyer. Thank you. And we won't pay your firm $325,000 a year.
And don't mail email.
What? I didn't hear what you said.
Letters is, email is what's preferred if you decide to send something via snail mail with a stamp on it. I would prefer an email if that were the case.
We'll
what
move on. I think that's what was implied is the email. But
Yeah, that was
we'll
just a
continue to
generic
move
question.
on. Thank you. All right, so we are at the next part of our meeting, the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda, please.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions? Roll call, please, Ms. Smith. Thank you.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
and Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes.
I do have some suggestions, ideas, motions, comments that refer to the items on the HR report. So is this the appropriate time?
For questions, you said?
I said questions, suggestions, motions, all the above. What I wrote in my note to you and
Okay.
Dr. McDowell and Ms. Page.
Yeah, this is as good a time as any, thanks.
Okay, good, thank you. And I guess I need to apologize ahead to Dr. Yeager, Ms. Humphries, and Ms. Drew, because I was, number one there, I was not going to pull anything off the consent calendar to delay for 2 seconds any payment of bills. But I have a motion, and I'm reading it from the email that I sent. Because of the ongoing discussions over funding in the Kansas legislature, I would like to make the motion that during the month of April, when the Board of Education is in budget workshops, that all non-essential spending be suspended for 30 days while the Board of Education reviews the budget balances. And if there are excesses, then perhaps they can be encumbered and saved for use in the case that state funding is not forthcoming.
So there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Was that a second, Ms. Page?
Yeah.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
So yeah, now I'll open it up for questions, clarification.
So, a question, Dr. Nguyen, how might we define non-essential spending?
I'm quite, and thank you for the question because that is key. Essential would be what we all agree, salaries, benefits, transportation, nutrition, food, all those that must be spent monthly, regularly to keep the operation going. But the purchase of furniture, the purchase of a new lawnmower, that would not be essential. So I don't believe there's any disagreement on what non-essential would be. Now, if you're in opposition to the motion, just on principle, I understand. I'm not talking about you, Miss Dr. I'm saying you. One, I'll use one. But I'm positive we're in agreement on what is essential. You cannot not pay people's salaries, benefits, insurance, bills of those natures. But it's an attempt to get a feel for a balance at this time. And the second part said, and I'm sure Tracy Kaiser or Mr. Covington is on, perhaps if we can encumber some of those funds, we can save them. And because during those 30 days, the Board of Education would be reviewing department budgets.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from board members?
I would not be in favor of this. I do not believe that we need to tie the hands of those who serve our students on a daily basis to delay anything they may need in concern of if it's essential or not. I believe that our leaders that we have hired to guide and the budget we have given them, the expenses that may come up with our children going back to school, I would not want that impacted. One of our priorities is academics, another priority is financial management, and in knowing that there may be some things that may be considered essential to someone, may not be considered to us, it would add an extra burden of proof, not only for our superintendent, because I'm sure she would get thousands of emails saying, well, is this essential? Can I do this? I don't want to override the, at this point in time, I would not be in support of this. It's very important that we impress upon our staff that we trust you to do the best that you can with the changing and our students coming back. I believe that since you know that this is on our radar, that possibly, you know, you may be thinking, okay, how can I save money or spend or roll over, et cetera. I believe that fiscal management is very important. And as they talked about dollars and from needs assessments and things for a building, I'm just not in support of it. I truly do not believe in tying someone's hands for 30 days in our leadership area.
Thank you. Other feedback,
Mr.
comments, thoughts?
Chris,
Yes,
I
Ms.
just
Page,
want
go
to
ahead.
say, we're dealing with our state legislature, and these people, they insist that we're not teaching. They use our scores against us, and they want to cut our money, and we have to make sure that we're using it wisely. And for us to say for 30 days, let's just stop, because we're almost out the door. And I don't see anything wrong with that, because we got to be leery. They use that against us at every hand, what we spend, and we need to get a grip on it. We say we want to do it responsibly, but we keep spending more and more and more and more. And at some point, we got to get a grip on it. And this is one way to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Page. I'll just offer a thought. I mean, I think we're all on the same page when we're talking about being good financial stewards of our resources, including staff, financial, and our students. I'm a little hesitant. I understand the need to be cautious with our funds, especially if there may or may not be a lack of funds in the future. But I'm hesitant to tie the hands of our staff to try to determine essential versus non-essential. And I trust that our staff are doing their due diligence when purchasing things. But I understand, I totally understand the spirit of this in terms of being good financial stewards of our resources. I don't know that I feel comfortable that this is the right way to go forward.
And if I may, Mr. Lopez, just the implication that we need an order to be responsible stewards of the funding is a little offensive. And I would challenge anyone who tries to pass a purchase by Mr. Covington. And the level, I'm serious, the level of scrutiny and the questions that they have to answer to get it approved by him, that I think, that's all.
Thank you, Dr. Miguel.
Oh, you know what? I thank you all, and you have totally missed the mark. With respect, I'll tell you, there's no offense intended. The board is responsible for every dime. Now, we heard this from the lawyer in going over board responsibility. That's not the point. The point is, for 30 days, as we review the budget for Department X, if we were to meet on April 2nd, what is your balance? What are your expected expenditures? And again, if, you guys have gone to another level of no one's questioning trust, no one's questioning whether you spend a dime that is not an eligible expense. I'm just saying, for management purposes, and remember, we are supposed to have an encumbrance policy. So if we are to encumber 2 months supply, 2 months payroll, you wouldn't be spending 2 months payroll. So
Right,
again, just, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll call for a roll call vote, but the point is, the intent is a positive. The response has been negative. It's unfortunate that you don't comprehend the spirit of the wording. So thank you, and I'll close on my motion.
And I would say that we do comprehend what is being said. However, it is offensive because we're about to go back to school, and now we tell these people, in spite of trying to get these kids back in and all of your focus and energy being to helping our kids, now stop and do this, stop and do that. They're going to be overwhelmed come by next Wednesday when our kids are returning to school, and we're heaping on. So although you may not feel it's offensive or it's no big deal.
and a reminder that encumbering ends April
So we can go
10th.
ahead and call the roll. I'm fine.
I want to give Dr. Miguel a word, and Ms. Drew had her hand up, so I do want to recognize Ms. Drew. She hasn't had a chance to speak.
So I just wanted to remind everyone that encumbering ends April 10th anyway, so by April 10th, we would have all funds encumbered, and we would be able to look at all the balances that you may want. And a reminder again that the board has access to all of you, so you are more than welcome to review expenditures and to ask any questions at any time.
Thank you, Dr. Miguel. I'll call on Ms. Drew, and then we will have a roll call vote. Thank you.
Thank you, President Lopez. Just wanted to remind everyone that we need to make sure that we're going to follow Robert's Rules of Order. One of the things that we do is when we have our discussion, we discuss, but when we get ready to vote, we only vote. No more discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Drew. So I will go ahead and ask Ms. Smith to do a roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, no.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, no.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, no.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, no.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen and Mr. Lopez, you probably need to remind us that Robert's Rule of Order are not what we are governed by.
Correct,
So
we do not have to, yes.
Yes.
Continue. Yes, thank you. Ms. Smith, continue.
Dr. Nguyen,
Yes.
I'm sorry, thank you. Dr. Yeager,
No.
thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Lopez,
Yes, Dr. Nguyen,
another motion, please.
thank you.
And this is direct wording, so Dr. Miguel, Mr. Lopez, and Ms. Page are not incorrect, are not surprised. And I will know in the future, I can send this to everyone, so there'll be no surprises. Because there are vacancies, I'd like to make the motion that HR engage in extensive hiring and recruiting program that would include, but not limited to, placing specific vacancies on the cable TV channel and purchase billboard space to advertise the vacancies. And that's the motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. I would ask for questions or comments. Dr. Nguyen, my initial comment will be based on the conversation that we had earlier with, I forgot, Ms. Miller, I think, who presented. The spirit, I think, within that conversation is that HR is considering all of those types of things, and I'm not sure if this motion is necessary.
That was actually my question too. I didn't speak on the last, and I did have some opinions there, but I want to make sure my voice is heard here. That was my question too. If our HR department or our talent management department has been empowered to do their jobs, we may not like the way it's happening. I have my own opinions there, but do we really need to vote on how they should move forward with hiring and how they should advertise?
May I respond to that, Mr. Lopez?
Please.
Was that yes?
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Yes.
Okay. No, once again, you know that I find it surprising that you guys always take a negative intent, and I always preface it by saying I'm not bringing the hate, but I'm just saying, and again, I'm very happy to hear from Ms. Miller that they're trying to fill the vacancies. We weren't told that without me asking. And so, good. If HR can verify that they are, and verification for me is trust just with verification. I'm not questioning anything. I'm just concerned that we have, and I'd like to ask Ms. Tishman, how many vacancies do we have? The state assessments are coming. We can't have teachers with 45 students. What are you gonna do? Can you use some billboards? Can you put some vacancies on the cable TV? Just suggestions, encouragement, not to remain stagnant. And again, that's just a statement of us not asking, what are you doing about filling vacancies? We've been running 35, 50 vacancies all year long. We can't continue to run that.
So,
yes, there's a teacher shortage. We've heard all this before, but we've got to do something different. I think, Ms. Clark, you're one of the ones that talk about the insanity.
Yes.
Increasing, something we got to do differently. That's the spirit of the motion.
No, I 100% agree with the vacancies and why do we keep doing the same things the same way? My real question is, do we need to make a motion on that, or do we need to set expectations to our staff on this is what we're looking for, this is what we're empowering you to do versus making a vote? I am all about the
Can
definition
I
of
just
it.
have a word here? We are doing all kinds of new things. I did not know I was supposed to report all the new things that we're doing, but I'm happy to do that. We can give you in the Friday update all the new things that we're doing. There's so many things. We post out on our own cable channel, our own channel, all the vacancies. We've done so many new things this year, but you know, if you feel like you're uninformed, I'll give it to Dr. Miguel, and you guys can look at all the things that we're doing. We're happy for suggestions, but I just don't want to give the impression that we're doing the same things over and over again, because that is not the truth.
So, Ms. Tushman, I just want to clarify, because that was not my indication.
Okay.
I was not indicating that you were not doing your job. I want to make sure that I am 100% clear there. There was a conversation that was taking place, and I want to make sure that, yes, I do agree that we should be innovative in how we do things.
Right.
I have not gotten an update on that, nor was I asking for one.
Right.
I was responding to the motion that was on the floor.
I appreciate that, and I don't want to overstress anything. We will just simply give the information. We're happy to do that at any time. We are always looking for new ways. Of course, it is difficult, as we all know, to attract talent in this day and age, and always, quite honestly, we're in the
Yeah.
fight for talent. So anyway, I just hope that helps. Thank you.
Ms.
I do not want to report from Human Resources advising how they're doing their marketing. I'm not in favor of asking for another report to put on top of HR to send on Friday, trying to get staffing for what we have, trying to get the teachers in line, trying to manage the requests that are coming, trying to manage parent concerns. See how the pile keeps stacking?
Yeah.
So I am not an advocate of adding another report at this time. Also, we just talked about the budget and being a fiscal agent. So I would not be in support of HR spending additional monies on a billboard. When we think about billboard and placements and how much that cost will be versus other economical costs in which people may come in contact with, that may be more efficient. So the best thing to do is to analyze or create analysis, not say, oh, we'll go get billboards. Okay, great. How many people are still out there driving past billboards? I don't know. I may see one billboard in a month. Will that attract me to come versus online advertisement, which may be better funding? So I am not in agreement of telling HR how to go about managing or sending out information such as billboards, and I don't think it needs to be an emotion. I think we can make recommendations or suggestions, but that goes back to advising the superintendent, what is the concern? What is actually the concern? Is the concern is our vacancies and lack of filling it, and what is being done to attract it? What is the true question we're having? And then the superintendent, their role is supposed to be go back, make that decision, make a recommendation back to us, the board, on how to solve it. What I see, the biggest problem is some kind of miscommunication. So I see something that's wrong, I'm making a motion to change it, although I'm not sure what's going on, and then I'm presenting it to the board, which I think leaves out, okay, can we have this conversation relating to it? Superintendent investigates and bring back the solution to us. I think that's what's missing in the loop when we say, okay, well, I don't think you're getting the spirit of what I'm saying. It's not that we don't understand the spirit of what's being said, it's what truly is the problem. And then how has the superintendent been allowed to solve it, resolve it, bring a resolution prior to just, I don't know when you sent those questions to the superintendent, because I wasn't aware, but it wasn't on our docket, or our board docs to know about. And it appears that there was conversation on that Wednesday for the board planning meeting, but then there's additional things added. So I think that again needs to be clarified too. When should those additional questions, suggestions, board additions be added that the other board is aware of, so that we, do not get surprises? We've been doing a great job of not surprising other board members and getting that information in advance, but it seems like there's just a couple of things that I didn't have on my radar that would have been great to know about.
So I'm going to bring us back into the discussion, or into the conversation. So there was a motion, a second. I do just want to say, and Dr. McGowan, it looked like you were going to say something, so I don't want to cut you off, and I do want to make sure you have your chance to speak.
So you'll have to restate what you were saying.
Oh,
because you guys dropped off.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lopez, I would be happy to withdraw the motion and welcome more conversation. But Dr. Yeager, I'm in constant communication with Dr. Miguel. And so while we may not have talked about this topic most recently, I'm in constant communication. So you don't have to worry about that at all. So thank you.
So the motion has been withdrawn. Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Dr. Miguel, did you have anything clarifying?
I just wanted to say, as usual, we appreciate all of the feedback. It is true, we are in constant communication, as I am with all board members. I do want to remind the board, a couple of Fridays ago, maybe 3 Fridays ago, in my Friday update, there was a section on HR recruitment, and I shared what the recruitment department was doing, which was very innovative. I was thrilled to read through the updates that they gave me so that I could share with you. Today we learned of another innovative way, which is the cards, the business cards. I think that was brilliant, and an easy and inexpensive way of reaching out people that we may not reach otherwise. So the suggestions of the billboard and the channel, they are all welcome. I truly think our staff is so open to suggestions. We don't need motions or mandates to help us think of new ideas. So I do appreciate all of the new ideas, keep them coming. And if there is anything that we're not communicating, let me know, because I'll be more, I've said more than once, if I know something, you will know something, because I believe in sharing all of the information. So if there is, and I know different board members have different interests, so at times I may get a question from a board member that just comes from one board member. But as I have shared also with all board members, when I respond, I will share with the whole board, because I believe if it's interesting or important to one, it will be interesting to all.
And I'll close and we can move on, but I'll remind the board as a whole and staff as well, you know, if we think back about our KASB workshops that we've been working with Dr. Wiesman, I keep picturing the clock that she sends us, right, with the permeable line in the middle. And it tells us that as board members, we do have a duty to work with our superintendent and to ask help with the vision and the what we want to see. But we should rely on our superintendent and staff and trust our superintendent and staff who we've hired, that they will tell us the how and how things will get done. So I understand that there's a permeable line, because I think it's okay to come down sometimes and to be able to ask those questions or to give suggestions. But I also want to remind us that where our role and responsibilities lie as a board, as a true school board. So I'll end it there. Thank you for the conversation. We will continue on with our agenda. And next on our agenda is an executive session. We will take a quick break before we go into executive session as well. It is 7:37. Why don't we convene for executive session? I would entertain a motion to enter executive session at 7:48 for, someone's gonna have to help me with my math, for 30 minutes, and returning at whatever that is.
30 minutes from now.
So going into executive session at 7:48 and returning after 30 minutes.
And staff, sorry.
Would entertain a motion to do so. Gotta get through that.
And then I'll say my piece.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Jamie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
and Dr. Yeager.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. And Dr. Miguel?
And staff, you are free to go. Thank you so much for your hard work. I appreciate you. And a reminder that the mics are still on.
Yes. Yes, mics are still on. All right, thank you, everybody. Can I get a motion to come back into open session, please?
So moved.
Second.
Great, thank you. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark, Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie here.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes?
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. We are back in open session. Just a reminder, next Friday, there is a Finance Committee meeting, and board members, please keep an eye on emails from our board. Oh,
He's muted.
Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes.
All righty.
Now we can hear you.
We're back in open session, everyone. Thank you. I just want to thank the board members, staff for all the work tonight. Thank you, Mr. Goheen, Mr. Hoda, and Mr. Birch and teams. Reminder, Finance Committee meeting next Friday. And, yeah. Ms. Dr.
And
Nguyen,
Dr.
go ahead.
Yeager, when can we submit items for the agenda?
You can submit them to me at any time prior to Wednesday before we meet.
Okay, and will they be accepted?
Like last time, I will meet with the finance, other people, if there's other concerns or questions that if it's on there or it's not, then I'll relay the message to you.
So that determines whether an item is on the agenda.
Yes.
All righty. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. This meeting
Thanks.
is
Good night.
adjourned.
Did Yolanda ever come back in?
She did not.
Okay.